Calling to order this regular City Council meeting Monday, April the 8th, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. We will start with the invocation from Mike Pornori from Ocean Canyon Properties.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity you give us to come to you in the name of Jesus, Lord. Lord, please bless us tonight as there's some issues on that the panel has, and please give everybody a cool head and a warm heart on solving all these issues at your will, Lord. And please, Lord, we ask to bless our country, all of our armed forces that are spread out around the world, our first responders, including the Border Patrol, Lord. Please bless us all. Amen. We love you, and in Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Councilman Brown will lead us in the pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
We will now continue to the roll call. The mayor, Pam Miller, is absent. The Mayor Pro Tem, Dennis Moore, is here. Councilman Bryant? Here. Councilmember Douglas?
Here.
Councilmember Martin?
Here.
Let the record show that Councilman Moore, Bryant, Douglas, and Martin are present, with Pam Miller being absent this afternoon. We'll continue on to citizen and visitor comments. They are limited to 3 minutes per person. Thank you, sir. We ask that you turn your cell phones off so we don't receive phone calls during the, I want to start to say the church service, during the service. And we ask councilmen not to be texting or browsing during meetings or talking on their phones either, by the way. So I see that there's no one signed up, but is there someone out there that did not sign up that would like to come speak on something that is not on the agenda? That is not on the agenda. It's your opportunity. It's a forum for things not on the agenda. Okay, I see no one. I'll move on to presentations, proclamations, and recognitions. We'll start off with 3A, our proclamation for Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. And I'll come up here with some of the representatives, read this off, and for their photo opportunity also. It says, whereas motorcycle riding is a popular form of recreation and transportation for thousands of people across the state and nation, and whereas motorcycles are an economical means of transportation that reduces fuel consumption and road wear and contributes in a significant way to the relief of traffic and parking congestion, and whereas state and motorcycle organizations across this country will be conducting a variety of activities to promote the importance of motorcycle awareness while sharing the road with motors. Whereas the city of Glen enjoys a large population of motorcycle tourists throughout the year, and whereas we wish to join in this public safety campaign to ensure the safety of our friends by encouraging all citizens to be aware of motorcycles on the streets and highways. I, Dennis Moore, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Glen do hereby proclaim the month of May 2019 as Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month.
Y'all doing this
You're
one.
welcome. Moving on to the next proclamation, I have a proclamation for Julia Douglas, our council person. Do you want to come down here? We further our photo opportunity. It says the Texas Municipal League and the Texas Association of Mayors, Council Members, and Commissioners are pleased to present this certificate of recognition to Julia Douglas for fulfilling the required continuing education units through participation in the Texas Municipal League Institute. Congratulations. Excuse me. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, item 4. All consent agenda items are considered routine by City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests an item be removed and considered separately. We have item A, consider approval or other action regarding the minutes of the regular City Council meeting held March 18, 2019. B, consider approval or other action regarding adopting ordinance amending section 5.04005 of the city's Code of Ordinances concerning fireworks to remove the word intent and to exempt packages unopened fireworks from confiscation. Item C, consider approval of other action regarding accounts payable report for payments made during March 2019.
There is a correction on the minutes. Item 4L, the minutes currently say 4-0. That was 4-1.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the one change in the minutes? I have a motion from Councilmember Douglas to approve the consent agenda. I have a second from Councilman Bryant to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed, raise your right hand. Let the record show that's 4-0 in favor of approving the consent agenda. Moving on to item 5A, public hearings. We will open this public hearing on these three items at 5:36. We have a public hearing for proposed annexation of a 45.990 acre tract 1-6, Three Rivers Edition, abstract of A136, the Milam County School Land, Three Rivers Edition, commonly known as OCP-Tres Rios LLC, Somervell County, Texas, 2322,2406 and 2430 County Road 312 Exhibit B, and the proposed annexation of an area of the Somervell County Road 312, formerly part of the State Highway 68. Should that say 67?
67.
It actually used to be
Oh,
Highway
you 68, okay. In the Milam County School Land Survey, abstract 136, Somervell County, Texas, to be annexed by the City of Glen, Texas, as surveyed on the ground in February of 2019 by W.L. Will Vaughn, beginning at the west side of Outlaw Station Street and including the right-of-way for County Road 312 for an approximate distance of 2,660 feet to the northeast corner of Tract 6, Three Rivers Edition, Volume 95, page 725, SCRPR, Exhibit C. And then we have item B, a public hearing for proposed annexation of U.S. Highway 67 and the 120-foot of right-of-way commencing from the west side of the intersection of State Highway 144 and County Road 333 and continuing eastward for approximately 7,227 feet, ending at the southwest corner of the .93 acre Tract 37, Abstract 136, Milam County School Land Survey, Somervell County, Texas, 3279 East Highway 67. And the third item, public hearing regarding case number 2019-SUP-3 in parentheses 1, as requested by Julith Connor, owner, for a specific use permit to operate a bed and breakfast in an R1 zoning district on .05 acres, part of the Lot 9 and part of Lot 10, Block 6 of the original Glen Rose town site, abstract A136, located at 205 Grace Street.
And then discussion for each.
Okay, and now at this time we'll have discussion for each, starting with A on the Three Rivers property. If there's someone that'd like to come and comment during this public hearing on this item, considering item 5A. I know I read a lot. Okay, anyone? Okay, moving on to item B, the proposed annexation of U.S. Highway 67 and the 120-foot right-of-way commencing from the west side of the intersection of State Highway 144 and County Road 333. Is there anyone that would like to come and comment on that item in this public hearing? Yes.
We have, I believe, slides for those two. That's the first public hearing on the Tres Rios.
Tres Rios.
And also, excuse me,
Go yeah.
and that's the
highway.
And the highway, the
in yellow.
proposal
Okay.
is in yellow.
Okay.
And then the county road is there,
Okay.
leading from Tres Rios into the city limits.
Okay. Is there anyone that'd like to come and comment on the public hearing for item 5B? Okay. What about item 5C regarding the specific use permit by Julith Connor to operate a bed and breakfast? Is there anyone that would like to come and comment on that in this public hearing? Okay. Since no one wants to speak on that, we will continue on. We will close the public hearings at 5:40. Go back to our regular session. We'll move on to item 6A. Sure, I got my stuff straight here. Okay, got that one later. 6A, individual items for consideration, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding case number 2019-SUP-3 in parentheses 1, as requested by Julith Connor, owner, for a specific use permit to operate a bed and breakfast in an R1 zoning district on .05 acres, part of Lot 9 and part of Lot 10, Block 6 of the original Glen Rose town site, abstract A136, located at 205 Grace Street. And I will defer to Tom Heath at this time to comment on this.
This property has been zoned to R1, single-family residential, which according to our ordinances, we can have a specific use permit for bed and breakfast. And I do believe we will have a lot of those that will come your way as they become more popular. This property has been operating as a bed and breakfast and wishes to continue to do the same. A specific use permit application has been filed by the owner, Julith Connor, who is here tonight, in an effort to continue to operate as such and comply with the City of Glen Rose ordinances. 17 certified letters were sent out to neighboring properties within the 200-foot notification radius. 14 certified letters came back, and we had 4 written favorable responses that were returned for the 200-foot notification radius. No unfavorable written responses, no letters in opposition. Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on March 21, 2019, voted 3-0 to recommend the issuance of a specific use permit with the parking stipulation of a maximum of 2 cars. You can see on the picture up in the 2-car wide driveway that's unpaved there, gravel in front of the small little house that's there that they want to use as a bed and breakfast. So they do have two parking spaces on site. And I believe that was one bedroom. Yes. Is it 1 bedroom? Yes. Okay, so it is not, the 2 is adequate. That's all I have, unless you have any questions for the owner or me.
Council, any questions? Yes, Councilmember Douglas.
So the specific use permit checklist that we were provided in our packet,
Yes.
I don't think this is for the right property.
Oh, did put an old one in there?
Well, it's actually got 2 or 3 different addresses in it, so I'm not sure exactly what
Okay.
P&Z recommended.
That was- Okay, I have a 205 Grace in mind.
Well, it says 205 Grace at the top, but when you actually start looking down in the red,
Okay,
number 1, it says the home faces Mission Street,
okay.
and then number 5,
That's what
it
happens
says
when you use a
Gaither Street is very
template.
narrow.
You're right, okay.
What was the second part?
The number 5 says Gaither Street is very narrow, and then number 6 said lot is very large, and neither of those 3 things
Okay,
are
you're
true.
correct, you're correct. The main thing for this, and that was used as a template, and apologize for it not being, is that we want to impose conditions at point B. That's the main part of this. And you can impose any conditions you wish. Planning and zoning only imposed the two-car parking, mandatory off the road. You can mandate any time, if you wish, a review of any of these bed and breakfasts. Of course, that would almost overburden you as we get more. So planning and zoning basically, if you just vote on it as is, the conditions will be 2 parking spaces required off-site, or on the site, I'm sorry.
Any other questions of council this time? Okay, we'll go to the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come and comment on item 6A? Okay. All right, coming back to council, is there any further discussion or comment on this item or concerns? Okay. Then I would be looking to see if there's a motion to be entertained on item 6A to take action.
I'll make a motion that we accept the special use permit with the stipulation that there is only 2 parking spaces and it all has to be off-street.
Okay, and I will second that. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed, raise your right hand. Let the record show that's 4-0. I'm afraid we won't say 5-0. 4-0 in favor. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 6B, discussion, consideration, and possible action on Piper Commercial Real Estate interest in purchasing Oakdale Park. And I will defer to our city administrator at this point.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore and members of the council, I was hoping for our city attorney to be here at this point because there are some legal issues here. There are a couple of things. We had a Piper Commercial Real Estate expressing interest in buying Oakdale Park, and we have a representative from that firm here tonight, and I believe he'll be addressing you here shortly. We informed him that first off, if you have a city park, to sell it, you have to have an election, and the voters have to approve the sale of the city park. And then, as I was looking into it further, I found that a statement where it says that the proceeds from that sale have to be used in the acquisition of a park or development of a park. I began asking some questions from the lawyers, Texas Municipal League, our city attorney, and I talked to the bond counsel who was involved in the original distribution of bonds for this project. And there are bonds on the project. They can be paid off in August of 2020. They can be paid off for the par value of the bonds plus accrued interest. Can't be paid off before that. When the bonds were issued, it was for a tax-exempt purpose, and it's very important that the property is not sold before the city, or when the property is sold, that those funds are immediately put towards those bonds so that it ceases to be bonded by tax-exempt bonds or funded by tax-exempt bonds. So, the attorney that I was talking to about the bond counsel, he said that he thought the tax law would allow the city to use the proceeds from the sale of the property, since it's connected with the issuance of the bonds, to pay off the bonds. But he said it would require further research. So you've got a lot of different legal issues here. And if the city were to decide to sell the park, and the motion was put in front of the voters, and the voters approved to sell the park, then the council would need to structure listing the property for sale to take the bids, and the possible sale of the park, so that the funds would come in not more than 90 days prior to August 15th of 2020. So if we move forward, just know that there's a lot of different technical, legal items that are going to have to be taken care of.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
this is for the administrator. If you say moving forward, what exactly do you mean moving forward? Because it sounds like there's a lot of information that we need before we can even consider it. I mean, regardless of the bond payoff, I think that's going to be the big part of it as well. So,
If there's any, I don't know if this council has even any interest in selling the property. The reason that this got put on the agenda is, as I said, the Piper Commercial Real Estate, Mr. Jordan Johnson had expressed interest in the purchase, and then wanted me to provide information on as-bills and different details about the park so they could properly value the property. And I was reluctant to devote time to gathering that information up because I don't even know if there's any interest whatsoever on the part of this council to sell the property. So there are questions that are going to require legal research as far as what you can do with the proceeds from the sale and the issues of the outstanding bonds and the fact that they're tax exempt bonds and the property is going to be sold for a commercial purpose. And I've relayed all of these questions to our city attorney, and as I said, I really needed his input tonight.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
one thing I think that we are going to really have to discuss, and I know the council has talked about this in the past, is when we do present this to the city, we need accurate numbers to show them just exactly what Oakdale is doing as far as financially, how much money we're putting into it of their taxpayers' dollars. Because obviously, it's the citizens, they use it quite a bit, so they love it. But at the same time, there's big concerns on our budgeting part of it.
I can address a good bit of that so that, I'm in no hurry, I don't have a whole lot of information yet anyway, so I was just going to reiterate what we were just talking about, that this is the very...
Sir, you're going to have to go to the podium to keep talking, yes, sir.
I was going to wait until
I know. If you start too much conversation, you're going to have to go to the podium.
I apologize.
Whenever you
Sorry.
guys are...
Okay.
Okay. Did our lawyer say that he would be running late, or Brady Pendleton? Okay. Would y'all desire him to come speak regardless of...
I mean, I'm really just here to introduce myself.
Really discuss
Can
it.
you go ahead? Can he go ahead and do that?
I don't... If you'd like to come up and give...
It's way premature to have anything substantive anyway.
Okay.
So really kind of the whole reason I have the whole idea in the first place. Certainly not coming to ask of anything.
Would you mind coming up here
Oh,
and
sure.
do an introduction of
Yes,
yourself?
sure.
Appreciate it. We'd like to meet you.
Yes. So my name is Jordan Johnson. I'm from Fort Worth. I am a real estate developer. Grew up in Fort Worth and really have been coming to Glen Rose since I was born. I'm a Fort Worth native, but I've been coming to the park and I've got friends here. And in general, one of the main reasons I am here is because I love Glen Rose and I have an interest in making an investment or helping Glen Rose or just being involved with whatever can be done, in town in general. So it's not just Oakdale Park, but I've always been walking around the square and looking at buildings, and what I do in Fort Worth is really focused on hotel, restaurant, retail, office, those kind of things. So a lot of what you guys might see around the museums in Fort Worth, I have been involved in bringing up out of the ground. And, I'm a bit of I travel to places where I've noticed a trend lately where you do see some RV parks that are being improved and amenities that are being added to them. And so really basically I was here and I made the first few phone calls just as inquiries to find out what the situation was. I did know that the city owned the park. I also knew it was a historically protected park. I also obviously know that it's a gem of the city, and so there was no interest ever in moving or asking or trying to make any effort to change the park or tear anything down or anything like that. This was all just investigation to try to see if there was any opportunity to take that park where it stands today, and with all of the work that would have to be done. This could take a couple of years. I'm just investigating. I'm down here visiting friends today, so I'm here all the time. I ride motorcycles through here all the time. I just love Glen Rose. So I always drive right by that park, and I'm always thinking, that's one of the coolest pieces of property I've ever seen. Wonder what could be done. And so just as a developer, I just think about that all the time. So really, I'm not really asking for any decisions at this point. It's more of, I know it's a big decision someday to make if it could ever be transferred. And maybe not even in the form of a traditional sale. Obviously, all those legal issues are important and complicated. This could be some sort of a public-private partnership where money is invested for upgrades, and we go through all kinds of preparations of what could be done. Completely open to all kinds of restrictions on how it's handled after any kind of transfer happens. But I just have a personal interest in being involved in whatever is best for Glen Rose as it relates to that park. Just because I think it's great. And so when I had made a few phone calls and we had talked, my first step would be in doing all of the due diligence that I could do with what basic information I could ask you guys for. So my first request would be is let me go through whatever work I can do on my time to look through what is actually sitting there. I've seen some financial information about kind of what the gross revenue may be. I've talked to some consultants and they basically say we need to know how big all the spaces are and kind of what shape the water, power, and electric is in. And all of those things come into maybe us having a discussion about even if there's a number that interests the city. Because I mean, there's probably a number, if it was $100 million, everybody'd say, yeah, no problem, done. If it were one, everybody'd say, no, you're wasting your time, we're not doing that, we're already, making money. But I just kind of thought, if it's a city-owned commercial property, kind of, the city or cities in general, if this is just like the Botanical Gardens in Fort Worth. The city doesn't want to own them, but they happen to own them because they were given those gardens. Now they cost $10 million a year. So it's like, you can't sell it, but there's a big discussion in Fort Worth about going private and nonprofit with that botanical garden. It's a similar kind of thing. Maybe that park is some sort of a nonprofit situation. I don't know. And the attorneys would have a lot to say about how to structure all of that. But all I'm really here to do is introduce myself and see if there is any interest in taking a few steps of due diligence and giving permission to see a little bit more information about what's sitting there. And so that's really my only request of you guys and of the council, and not to ask for anything that is sensitive, and being very sensitive to the fact that park is a very important part of the city. That's kind of where I am. It's very, very preliminary. I'm always happy to come down if maybe there's a small committee that's put together to just kind of go through some investigation that reports back, or anything that you guys want to do.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah. Okay.
Any discussion from council at this time? Councilman Brown.
Are we wanting to vote on just moving forward? Because I think, in my opinion, can't speak for the rest of the council, but I think we're wanting what's best for our hotel and the citizens. So just discussing or moving forward with it, I don't have a problem with that at all.
But moving forward just means discussion at this point. That's all it means.
If the council is agreeable with me and other staff investing time to assist him in his inquiries would be the main question. And then also, probably at the same time, pursuing the investigation of the legal questions involved.
Okay. Yes,
I
Councilman.
know I was disappointed because Brady wasn't here tonight either, because I had previously asked Michael to give a Brady and asked him to find out about the deed, if it was possible that we could have something in the deed that it would remain as a public park.
We would work with anyone to make sure that stays that way. And I think there are some things already in place that do that.
I would think, seeing that our lawyer's not here tonight, and that's important, that we probably should just take no action on this tonight and look at it maybe at a further date at this point. There's really nothing.
Yeah, if that's not a problem, doing it in a deed, where it stays the public park, I would about be interested in seeing us.
Right.
looking at it anyway. I think it's something we need to look at.
Good. In fact, Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
if I could get some authorization from the council just to do some exploring, then I'll do that. And if you don't, then I'll let it drop until some further future dates.
Do we just need to give you direction, or we need an official vote?
Just verbal direction's fine. I just want to make sure that I'm not stepping out of bounds.
Sure.
I agree.
I have no problem with that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6C, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the submittal of a preliminary application for safe routes to school and transportation alternatives set aside SRTS-TA-SA funding to the Texas Department of Transportation. And I'll defer to Michael Lemons.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, you have two different applications in your packet. The project size is a little over $1 million, and one application is for safe routes to school. The other application is for a transportation alternative, and there are some serious considerations here. I have Melinda Smith with Trailer and Associates present, and I would like for her to discuss this with you and make you aware of the choices that you need to make tonight.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. My name is Melinda Smith. I'm with Gary Trailer and Associates, and I've been here before, but it's been a little while. And the major discussion revolving around this application is really what is the level of commitment of matching funds to the completion of the project. The Safe Routes to School alternative would be a 100% reimbursable grant other than the application preparation fee. That of course is best case scenario. That is in a perfect world that gets funded and there is no matching fund requirement levied upon anybody. That program is far more competitive because everybody would love to have a 100% reimbursable project. The Transportation Alternatives Project, there's actually two options that go along with it. One is the current call for projects, which we know already will include some funding for the environmental and engineering included in that. And one thing that's not reflected in the total right now, because this is the preliminary application, TxDOT is going to assess an administration fee of their own. That's 15% of the construction cost, but they do actually assume that your engineering and administration is part of that construction cost. So you're looking at another $28,000 of city responsibility in matching funds once you tack that administration fee on under the current call. So that would bring the total match commitment. And again, these are all very preliminary numbers. These are estimates. These are kind of placeholders in the beginning of the discussion. The detailed application that will be due in August will have definitive numbers, or at least to the best of our knowledge. You never know what happens when you go out to bid, but there'll be, specific measurements, and based on the, quantities of materials that will actually be necessary and the most recent estimates that the engineer has on hand at that time. But as of right now, with the estimate that we have, if it's placed in the current call, the match commitment would be around $275,000. And if it were placed in the 2021/22 fund, which they can't guarantee that the environmental or engineering funds would be paid, then the estimated match would be around $360,000. So we have three options. The best case scenario of no matching funds, one that would be around a $275,000 match commitment, and then one that would be $360,000. Now, my only concern with saying that you would be willing to participate in either the Safe Routes to School program or Transportation Alternatives program is that once you say, yes, we have the money to commit to match, I'm really scared that they're going to say, well then, since you've got it and these people over here don't, then we'll fund their project, 100%, and y'all go ahead and pay match. I'm not sure. This is the first time they've offered this as an option to participate, simultaneously in one application saying, yes, consider us for both. I don't know how it's going to play out. I can't say for certain that that's the way it would be viewed. That is my personal fear by saying, yes, consider us for TA as well. The good thing about saying, yay, consider us for TA, is that based on the response that they've had over the past several years, due to the size of the city, I can't guarantee it would be funded, but the chances would be very, very good that it would be funded. If you're showing any kind of commitment by the city, they like to see community participation, and it's not always possible for cities of this size to contribute the matching funds.
Council members. Councilmember Douglas.
When you're talking about the matching funds, are you just talking about the city's portion of matching funds, or is that the entire matching fund?
That's the entire matching fund. So that would also be, split. There's nothing in writing right now determining a percentage that I'm aware of. That would be an interlocal agreement sometime between now and the detailed application submittal to determine the exact amount contributed by the school district and the county as well.
Councilmember Martin.
How much did it cost us to get started in this thing?
Application, how much are we?
The application fee is $7,500, but we're not charging that fee until submittal of the phase 2 application. So there's a couple more steps before you would be responsible for that, but ultimately that will be the application preparation fee.
I thought we had to get involved with a school and a county on this. We had to pay something up front. We didn't?
The three entities all agreed to split the application cost.
Okay.
There is no agreement yet on the construction cost. I did, when I presented this to the County Commissioners Court, I discussed, the potential matching funds for construction. And I got some positive feedback from commissioners, and I got some less than positive feedback. So the commissioners have not taken a vote, and I couldn't tell you if they would, if we needed $100,000 from the county, whether or not they would agree to that. I think there's a possibility of it, and I think there's a possibility that since the school and the county both have agreed to fund the application, and they're aware that there may be matching cost, that there's a possibility they would split that those construction costs 3 ways, so the city would end up being a little less than $100,000 if we go for the TA. And like she's saying, I think there's a lot more money in the transportation alternative pot than there is in the safe routes to school pot. So if we just submit only for safe routes to school, there's a fair chance that we're not going to get funded. If we submit for both, more than likely we're going to get funded, but there's I think a smaller chance that we're going to get 100% funded than there would be if we only apply for that. So it's a difficult decision, but it's one that you need to make at this point so she can submit an application.
Now, one other thing to note would be that this is flexible. Right now, this considers 3 different segments of the Safe Routes to School plan. One section near the elementary school, one section near the intermediate, and one section near the junior high. It's phased for a purpose, and that is because it encourages TxDOT to fund. If they didn't have enough money to fund the entire project, they might come to the city and say, hey, we'll fund the elementary school portion and the junior high. We'll come back and get you later on the intermediate portion. Again, right now, this is very preliminary. We'll have a step that we actually meet with the district office and discuss everything. And then the detailed application will be due in a few months. At that time, we would have a much better idea of the level of involvement and commitment by the school district and the county. And we can tailor the project at that time to meet what y'all are willing to commit. We would have a resolution before you with, documenting up to this amount, and that's as far as y'all are willing to go without further council approval. The county commissioners would sign a very similar document as would the school district. So once we nail down a very specific budget, given the parameters that everyone's willing to agree to of, this is how much we're willing to contribute, this is what we think we can contribute, at that point, we would put it all in writing and tailor the project to meet those numbers.
Councilmember Davis?
Is that application fee the same regardless of which application we
It is.
submit?
Yes, ma'am.
Michael?
And there's one other little mix to this whole matter that she shared with me, and that is that several of these sidewalks are along TxDOT right-of-way. And it's possible, they've done it before, that TxDOT might pull those portions of the project out of our grant application and handle them under a different program.
Correct, and that would be at no cost. They would administer and engineer the project themselves. It's happened to us on several occasions. That is quite honestly part of the reason that we charge an application fee, because we do all this work and then TxDOT comes in and says, hey, that's a great project, we like it, let us take care of that for you. and we're out of the picture from that point forward, which is great for the communities, but we do have a tremendous amount of expense that goes into the preparation of the applications. So that is a very, very good possibility as well for this, because there is such a large portion along Highway 67 in particular that is included in the application as it is right now.
Other questions of council? Anyone in the audience that'd like to come and comment on item 6C? Okay. Coming back to council, is there any further comment or concerns, discussion on this item 6C? Councilman Bryant?
I'm definitely more moving forward with one of the two, or if not both, but not knowing numbers, it's hard to say which one. I'm sure the county would probably participate in some of this, I would imagine. But I mean, if not, what type of budgeting do we have to fulfill these agreements if they didn't?
It would have to be in a future, it wouldn't happen this year, it'd be in a future year's budget.
It could span probably 3 fiscal years, to be quite honest with you.
It could?
The likelihood of moving quickly on these, by the time there are some acquisition issues that would have to be taken care of up front, just to make sure that we have everything in order. The environmental is done up front before you ever get to spending any money on construction, which is where the bulk of the expense will be. You're looking at a good 18 months, I would say minimum. It'll take probably a year just to get the TxDOT contract in hand, all of that worked out and moving forward.
And that budgeting can be, money can be budgeted through phases per year?
Yes.
Okay.
We can make sure that we are moving at a pace that when we determine how much we request for reimbursement. Now, the one thing is that the city would be responsible for payment of the invoices, and then we request the reimbursement. So, we would have to be very mindful of mostly the engineering and administration invoices when they're going through to make sure that we're spacing those out. But, realistically, you're looking at a couple years of construction, pretty much regardless.
Other discussion from council? Then I would say we need to look, see if there's a motion to be entertained on item 6C on how we want to proceed.
Mayor, what does the rest of the council think about the two applications?
I would agree to go ahead with both. So,
I think that we're paying the application fee regardless, so it would make more sense to apply for both, especially if there's not as much of a likelihood of getting just the single one, because we're at that $7,500.
Now, when y'all say both, do you mean the safe routes, current call, and then future call? Because those are two separate amounts. The future call may or may not be more money. That was the $360,000 option. That's kind of worst case scenario. For the $275,000 option. I should make sure that I'm checking all the boxes exactly how y'all would like for them to be checked.
What's the council's wishes on that?
There's a box on this that is asking if there are no funds available to be paid for the environmental and engineering, or does the city have the money to pay the environmental and engineering basically aside? That might be one solution, is go ahead and say that yes, we would like to apply for all three, but that no, we don't have the money, because that's a good $150,000 of the matching funds right there. And we could cut it off there and say that, you know, hey, if yes, it is going to be an actual 80-20 split, which the project is supposed to be, then yes, we want to participate. But if we're going to pay for everything, you know, aside from construction outside of the grants, then no, we really can't afford that. Yeah, that would be the other option. Sorry, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
But that's why I'm here, because these are decisions, you know, for council to make, and it's not an easy one, and I realize that.
So, Mayor, how
Yes.
would we word that to a motion to approve all three applications with the stipulation that we did not have the funding to match third option?
Right,
Good.
that the city does not have the ability to pay the environmental and engineering fees outside of the grant funding.
So looking at a motion to approve all three with stipulation that we can't
Pay the environmental and engineering fees
fees.
outside of the grant, outside of the application. Do you have that?
I do.
Okay. So we have a motion. You're going to make a
I'll make a
motion.
motion.
Councilman Bryant's making a motion to approve all three processes with the exclusion of taking care of environmental.
and engineering fee
engineering
outside of the
fees.
application.
I'll second.
Can I have a second from Councilmember Douglas? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Raise your right hand. There's none. That's 4-0 in favor. Moving on to item 6D, discussion, consideration, and possible action. Thank you, ma'am. We'll start over. Discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding approval of the hot tax grant application for Texas smoking guns in the amount of $6,000. And Kelly Harris will speak to this at this time.
Council, as you all know, this group has been coming here for a couple of years now. They have changed their date to come. Last year was the second year. It was always the last Saturday of July. Due to the heat, we did not have as many participants come down this way because it was too hot for them to bring their horses down here in this heat and then drive on up to Las Vegas. So they have moved it earlier in the month of July to the 4th of July weekend. Therefore, they're hoping to bring a lot more people down here during that time. They're
Question-
requesting 6,000.
Questions, Council? Councilman Bryant?
What was the previous request last year?
6.
It was 6, and they weren't on the reduction process yet?
No. The only people who are on the reduction starts this fiscal year. Grants that
So-
are this fiscal year.
So they get 3 next year? Is that how?
No,
They would get
75%.
75% of the 6,000
Okay,
next year,
75%.
and then 50% the third year,
Okay.
as long as all criteria is met.
Right. Discussion from council.
No.
Any other discussion from council at this point? All right, I'll go to the audience. Anyone in the audience like to come and discuss this item? Item 6D about a $6,000 grant to the Texas smoking guns.
Can we just ask what they are? What company?
What are
I can
they?
explain.
Yeah.
Texas Smoking Guns is actually, it is a shooting competition on horseback. The competitors are dressed in, the ladies are dressed in prairie costumes, outfits. The gentlemen, it's not your typical rodeo type attire. It's more from the Old West style. They shoot off horseback with rifles, with pistols. They shoot at balloon targets in various different patterns. And so it's a very interesting, it's a neat.
Do they come to do it at the expo?
They go to Expo, and then this particular group has been very good in, the last 2 years. They participated in the, National Day of the Cowboy here in Glen Rose. This year, they're, promoting the 4th of July events to bring them in earlier, and, possibly even some of them will ride in the 4th of July parade to promote the mounted shooter. Did I explain it?
Yes, sorry, I just did.
It's Councilman Bryant.
And what are we doing to advertise? Is it still radio and paper and
We
websites?
do radio and paper, but they are also putting it in the mounted shooting magazine that goes out all over the nation. When they are headed to finals in Las Vegas, they either go up north through South Dakota or they come down south through Glen Rose. And so people actually liked it here in Glen Rose. It just got so hot to come down at the end of July for their horses that we're hoping that by moving it up, that we'll have them all come back again.
Locally, they'll get a local paper and your website?
It'll be on our websites. There'll be flyers that will be given out to all the businesses around here. It'll be on the radio station, it's in their magazine, and in all their newsletters through all their clubs.
Okay.
Yes, Councilman Martin.
And how long were they here? How long did the event last?
It's a full 3-day event. And it runs pretty much all day throughout the 3 days in various categories.
Other questions of council? Okay. Go to the audience. Does anyone in the audience like to come up and comment on this grant?
How many contestants?
They're hoping this year for 100 or more. Last year, because it was slower, I think it was 78 contestants.
And let the record show that's Mr. Cobble commenting. And Tricia Sexton commenting.
And the event is free.
Need that for the record.
For the general
You're actually
audience,
supposed to go
it's a
up.
free event.
How many attendees in the audience typically? Oh, I'm sorry.
Kelly, we need you to finish up and sit down and have them come up because we're violating protocol. You need to come to the podium, announce your name and address. That's the way it has to be done, folks. For the record and for her record keeping. Now, I don't mean to be mean, but it needs to be done that
No,
way.
no.
Okay.
I'm good. Jack Johnson, 307 Mission Street. I'm just curious how many attendees come to this function? Just to,
They all bring families with them as
Uh-huh.
well as other relatives, but there are quite a few people that follow this particular event. I don't have exact numbers, Jack, how many people actually show up for the event because I can't be there all 3 days for the whole time.
okay.
But there are people that go to watch it.
So they sort of caravan around and follow it.
Yes.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to come up and comment on this item? Anyone? Tom?
No, it's not my hand.
All right, I'll come back to the council. Yes, sir. Councilman Bryant.
In reference to some of the citizens' comments, I think that, I went last year, and it looked great, there's a lot of people there, but not near as what I thought there would be, and I was talking to some of the citizens, a lot of them didn't even know about it, and I think it's very interesting. I think a lot of people would actually
Yeah.
attend more, and that's where I was kind of trying to get across how we're going to advertise and put it out there, because it is a pretty big deal, and I think more people would probably go locally.
Are y'all having, isn't your wine festival the week before, or am I mistaken?
Can I answer?
2 weeks
June
before.
20th.
There'll be a week in between that. Okay. Well, it could be advertised at the wine festival, couldn't it? There'll be a lot of people here. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, coming back to council, is there a motion to be entertained on item 6D?
I'll make a motion that we approve the grant for the smoking guns. Grant? The $6,000.
Okay.
for the smoking
Have a
gun.
motion on the floor to approve the grant of $6,000 to Texas Smoking Guns. Have a second from Councilman Martin. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed, raise your right hand. Let the record show that's 4-0 in favor of approving item 6D, a grant of $6,000 to the Texas Smoking Guns. Moving on to item 6E, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding resignation of Louisa. Am I saying it wrong? Louisa Monk from the Planning and Zoning Board, and the appointment of 2 vacant positions and the 1 expiring position. I'll turn it over to our city secretary.
Okay, so Ms. Monk was recently appointed, so she has almost a full term left. She's put in her resignation for your review. So we would be looking for someone to appoint for her unexpired term. We also have Scott Wilshusen, so we have an unexpired term for him. And then once Ms. Hawthorne takes her council seat in May, her spot also will be vacant. I talked to TML. They said that there's no problem with appointing someone in advance. And if you have looked through your applications, current Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Moore has applied for the Planning and Zoning Board. So should you guys look at possibly appointing him, you could appoint him for the future position. And there would be no problem as long as Ms. Hawthorne actually takes council. He could take that spot.
Any questions of council at this time?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Also, we recently dissolved the Board of Adjustment. So you also have an application in here from Ms. Karen Richardson. She had originally applied for both boards. I don't know if you guys remember. We had many applicants at the time, and so we had asked her if she would be fine with the Board of Adjustment, which she was. So we took her application off the Planning and Zoning Board at that time. She's reapplying
Okay.
at this point.
Do you want me to open it for nominations at this time?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a nomination of Karen Richardson to the P&Z for, do I need to say which one? The
Why don't we-
unexpired term.
Well, all of them are going to be unexpired, so why don't you guys just specify which person you're looking for May appointment?
Okay. I was doing this for the current.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Do we need to take action on the resignation first, or?
You can do it all at the end. After you make your nominations, you can make the whole motion at one time.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Do we need to let them speak before we start making nominations?
Yes. Thank you. Those that are here in the audience, would you like to come and speak, that are, have an application in? Karen, I know Karen's here. She's hidden back there, I didn't see her.
Yeah, I'm Karen Richardson. I live at 303 Southwest Bernard, and as was mentioned by the city secretary, I did apply and was appointed to Board of Adjustments, and when that didn't pan out, I actually applied for either board, but, and I have served on numerous city boards in the past, and I dealt with planning for a long time in my business. So, anywho, does anybody have any questions for council? All right.
Thank you.
That being said, I wish to excuse myself. I think this gets
Okay.
real awkward when,
Okay.
it's kind of like picking teams for
Okay.
kickball,
Okay. I think Mr. Coble's here. Mr. Coble, am I pronouncing your name correct? Coble, okay. I'm not, Coble. Good to have you, sir.
Yeah, my name is Lonnie Coble. I live at 106 Heritage Place here in Glen Rose. I've owned property in Glen Rose and in Somervell County for about 15 years and have gone through 2 planning and zoning cases here before the council since I've been here. My experience with planning and zoning has been on the other side of the desk for the most part. But I was a real estate broker in Arlington, Mansfield for about 30 years, back into the 70s. We dealt mostly with frequent zoning cases. But I'm interested in the growth of the city and controlled growth and planned growth. And I think we need it, so.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Is TJ Walker here?
Yes, sir.
TJ, you can speak.
TJ Walker at 604 Southwest Bernard. We've been here 3 years now, and I kind of learned the heart of Glen Rose, and I just want to help Glen Rose to continue to be the wonderful community it is, and I thought this would be a great way to contribute and just keep the heart of the city going as the heart, like keep it beating the way it needs to be.
Thank you, TJ. No. I've been on the P&Z years prior. I think I was on there 5 or 6 years. That was before we had term limits back in the day.
So we currently have one nomination by Mr. Moore, and that's Karen Richardson, so.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Again, so we're looking for 2 positions for P&Z,
2 immediate, 1 for May,
one for May.
and accepting Mrs. Monk's resignation.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing.
Does P&Z have an alternative?
No, they do not.
They do not.
It's a 5-member board.
Is there a possibility of adding an alternative?
I believe the alternate has to be in part in our ordinance, and we don't have that in our current ordinance.
Okay. I just hate turning down, I hate losing anybody that wants to
I know,
volunteer.
I know.
Yeah. For my
Brady, would that be correct?
That'd be correct, Ryan, orders for alternates.
Okay.
Do we need to leave the room?
No, you can
You don't
stay.
have.
So, can I nominate?
Yep, yep.
Can I nominate?
Sure.
So, I'd like to nominate Dennis Moore.
For the May term,
For
in May?
May term, because, I mean, Dennis Moore's just been a part of the city for so long, and he knows just about everything there is to as far as adjustments and direction. So I think he'd be a good asset for P&Z.
Okay.
Another nomination?
I'll nominate Karen.
Already did.
Oh,
One.
yeah. Sorry.
She's already been nominated.
Yep, Karen's already been nominated.
Sure.
So we need one more nomination. We have Ms. Walker and Mr. Coble that have not yet been nominated. We need 3 total.
Oh, okay. Mr. Coble?
Okay. You ask for nominations to cease at this point? You got 3 or?
Unless Miss Julia has something
I'm
else
sorry.
she wants to add.
Okay.
So then at this point, then if you guys are closing nominations, then your motion would be to accept the resignation of Louisa Monk, effective immediately, to fill the 2 unexpired terms with Ms. Richardson and Mr. Coble, with Dennis Moore filling the vacancy that will come open in May.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience like to come and comment on this process? Okay, we come back to council for any further discussion.
Hey, very quick question.
Yes.
The vacancy in May, that's an expiring term.
It's an unexpired term. Ms. Hawthorne will be taking the council seat at that time, and her position is the one that we will be
Okay.
filling.
Okay.
Okay, so I have this time nomination of Karen Richardson, Dennis Moore, and Mr. Coble, with the accepting of the resignation of Louisa Monk.
Yes, sir.
I have a motion from Councilman Bryant. I have a second from Councilmember Douglas. We need yours on there. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed, raise your right hand. Let the record show that's 4-0 in favor of those appointments and the resignation of Louisa Monk.
Mayor, may I ask
Yes, sir.
a question to the audience?
Sure.
Is it Mrs. Walker or Miss?
Mrs.
I don't want this to discourage you because anybody who wants to get involved, we want to see you stay that way. And unfortunately, there's only 3 in this position, but they're open all the time. And I'm sure our city secretary will be glad to reach out to you in the next position available.
I will.
Please don't
Yes,
give up.
ma'am.
Thank you
I
very
will.
much for applying.
My feelings are not hurt. I'm fine.
Great.
She knows how to get hold of me.
Okay, good.
I marked on my thing so much you couldn't read it now. Moving on to item 6F. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on allowing the Somervell County 4-H Club to install poles to support shade claw in the vacant lot east of Oakdale Park. And I'll turn it over to our city administrator at this time.
And I will turn it over to Dwayne Johnson with the 4-H, who's here to explain his
Okay,
request.
Mr. Johnson.
How y'all doing? My name's Dwayne Johnson. I live on County Road 2010, 1664B. First of all, I want to say I appreciate you. Over the last 4 years, y'all have allowed the 4-H to have their jackpot down at Oakdale Park. We started off, didn't know where we were going to go with it. And over the last 4 years, it's made the 4-H club about $15,000. It takes a nucleus of people, to get that thing put on and make it successful every year. Every year we're looking to improve it. As you know, like they were talking about the heat earlier, in September it may be 100 degrees. We're in the 3rd week of September. You're thinking it's getting cooler, but it's it's been 100 degrees down there, I swear. But and last year we were trying to get it a little cooler because it was we've grown in contestants about 50 every year. We were up to 180 contestants last year. And it was a little bit off because of the rain predictions, all that stuff. But the heat beating down on us, we purchased some shade cloths that we can stretch out with the eyelets, and which is difference of night and day and being out in the heat and under those things. And last year we tried to construct it using PVC pipe, making bows out of it and stuff. We got by with it and it worked, but it wasn't just the best application that we could have had. We normally build that pen that we show out of. We use the panels from the Expo Center. They let us borrow those. We set those up, and we usually set up a 30 by 60 pen. Get the kids in and let them show with plenty of room. And what I talked to Michael about was possibly we need more like the telephone poles sitting there that's into the ground, where the center is about 12 foot high and the outsides are about 10, so we can get that shade stretched out where it'll hold and the wind won't affect us. We were wanting to put those up and just put them in dirt, put them in the dirt, don't concrete them in or anything like that. We can put the eyelets in there where there's no cable sticking across all the time, and that way we could get a better installation, make it look better for the kids. It could also be used for anybody else that want to, I know sometimes y'all use that other side over there for a bit, you'll have some kind of event over there. They would be there I know they have the bloodhounds and stuff they set up over there sometimes. Stuff like that on tracking, they could set up a canopy and use the posts as well. But I was going to come to you tonight and ask you if that would be possible.
Councilman Bryant.
Where would those be located at?
We always go on the east side over by Dennis's church. They're inside the trees. There's flat places are hard to find over there, but we've got one area we tried to use last 3 years that we had to smooth out. And it's, I guess it's probably, what would you think? That's about 60, 70 foot off of the last new row of RV pavement back inside those trees.
And you're looking at, there's just 4?
There would be 6.
6.
Yeah, 2 for the middles and 4 for the edges.
Okay. I did have a question or more of a concern. You said that the poles would be put in and just packed with dirt so they could be moved at any time?
Well, Okay.
If we did put these in there, could we make them more structurally sound? If they're gonna be there for years, are you gonna plan to be there years?
Yes,
from
sir. Yes, sir.
Make
If y'all
them more-
allow us.
Okay, make them more structurally sound, put in some concrete to make them go where they, no chance of really getting saturated and falling over.
Yeah, I mean, we could put them down, 3 or 4 feet deep
Okay.
or whatever. I just didn't want y'all to feel like we were trying to put a permanent structure there that y'all, wouldn't want to agree to. If you want us to concrete them in, we can.
Is there something you could pull up, have it in concrete, put it in, bolt it or something, and then
They're gonna
it
need
wouldn't
to,
be,
if you ever wanted to get rid of them, we can get them pulled up or whatever. We can remove them. It's just, that wind gets blowing on those tarps, and then I just don't want to get any, have any problems.
Mayor, that's what I was thinking, that if they were just more secure, it would be, a little bit more safety issue. And, the city's got the equipment too, we could always pull the concrete.
Yeah, I'll be glad to do it ever how you want it. I was just trying to be.
Okay.
I prefer just doing it dirt. If you get that thing 4 foot in the ground, I don't think there's any problem, as far as being safe or anything. And it'd be a lot easier if we ever decide to do anything with that acreage.
Sure.
They'd pull them.
It's whatever y'all decide, whatever y'all prefer. I just would appreciate the opportunity to put them there so we could use them. And like I say, my plan is we can put them there and we'll put the eye boats through there. And so whoever else wanted to go, that way there's not full on them all the time. You can take at least whatever you want and anybody else could use them. For whatever reason they could over there.
and are we talking about, you're covering all the cost of this is whatever cost there is from the 4-H?
We'll make it work. If you want little kids to pay for it, we'll do that.
Well, I mean, I didn't know what,
For little kids.
Like
I feel between the county and the city, we could get something
okay,
done.
I'll be at
to
the next
help.
county meeting. Do y'all allow public comments at the county meetings?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I didn't know y'all had that.
And we love little kids.
Mayor?
Yes.
And I wouldn't mind if we had the Oakdale Park Manager and the City Works Director there just to kind of make sure everything, I know Dwayne's going to be accurate when he says it's going to be securely sound, but just to let them be part of it.
Right.
You would make them a part of it.
Sure, I work well with them all the time, so we can make it happen.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion from council? Anyone in the audience like to come and comment on this item? I'm sorry, Councilmember
I have a
Douglas.
question for Michael. Is there any sort of, or Brady, sorry. Is there any sort of liability to the city? Or any sort of danger if something were, say, to happen to those poles and somebody was on city property and they were to get injured? Would the city be responsible for something of that nature?
I don't even think this is the polls change the liability question, so. I mean, the event itself would be the issue, it's the polls, not the problem. We've discussed all that before previous meetings, so.
Anyone in the audience like to come and comment on this item? Okay, I'll be coming back to council for any further concerns, discussion, or to take action on this item.
I'll make a motion that we approve Somervell County 4-H Club to install 4 poles, six poles requested for shade cloth.
Okay. Have a second from Councilman Martin. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed, raise your right hand. Let the record show that's 4 in favor of approving 6 poles to support shade cloth. Moving on to item 6G, discussion, consideration, and possible action on dealing with the vacancy on the council created by Robert Marquez's resignation by either appointing someone to fill the seat, calling a special election to fill the seat, or leaving the seat vacant. So we'll go to council at this time for discussion.
I have no problem, I'd rather not call it a special election, but I have no problem appointing someone or leaving it open. Either one of those options, if you could with me.
Okay. I think if we're going to appoint someone, we ought to advertise a little bit and let the public know, make them aware, and then have maybe more participation if they're aware, because people always say they're not aware of things.
Mhm.
But I would have no problem appointing someone or leaving it vacant. Anyone else have any comment? Councilman Martin?
Yeah, I'd like to see us leave it vacant right now and we see how it works, and later on, if we need to, feel like we need to do something, we do it then.
How long does he have left in his term? It's a year.
Year.
Next meeting.
And with you guys already doing the calendar, for all the budgeting, then there's no special meetings for that, so.
Right. Okay. Any comments from council? The audience? Anyone in the audience like to come and comment on this item? Anybody? Okay, coming back to council, is there any further concerns, discussions, considerations on this item, or a motion to be entertained?
I'll make a motion. We leave the seat vacant. right
Okay.
now.
Have a motion from Councilman Martin to leave the seat vacant at this time.
I'll second.
Have a second from Councilman Bryant. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed, raise your right hand. Let the record show that's 4-0 in favor of leaving the seat vacant at this time. Okay, moving on to item 6H, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding designated parking for patrons conducting official city hall business. And I'll defer to Councilman Bryant.
Yeah, I put this on the agenda just mainly to get council and possibly citizen feedback, but there's several days throughout the week that there's absolutely no parking in the city hall parking lot. So, and I think a lot of that is overflow from the thrift store shopping, which there's no problem with that. That's fine. But what we do need to do is I think that we need to designate at least a few 2 to 3 spots in the city parking spot for city business only, because there's been times even when I've pulled up that there's no parking. I've got to park at the square. And there's been concern from citizens. This is just not a thing I'm bringing to the council for me. There's concerns from the citizens that try to pay their water bill that have no parking availability either. So that's why I placed it on the agenda, just to discuss possibly reserving a couple of spots in the city parking lot for city business only.
Councilmember Duggins?
Do we already have some spots designated on this side?
There are a couple, I believe, that are designated for.
And do we have any back here on this fence, or is that just for employee parking?
Well, the signs say city vehicles only, but we consider that, council staff are coming from a different area, not necessarily for the public, though.
Michael,
I
our
have
city
one-
administrator.
I have one suggestion that would help me, and it would help you all. Because I park out here. I used to park down by the end because I drive old cars. And the former mayor told me I needed to park up here. So I steeled myself and I did it. And I've managed, but sometimes I drive my 93 Dodge diesel pickup. And recently our city secretary bought a brand new quad cab Dodge pickup. And it's really hard to pull in. So I'd like to make that my spot for visitors to City Hall, and then I could put a spot way down at the end for city administrator.
But I'm going to want to park right next to him, so.
I have a suggestion, this is just a suggestion, that we make these two right here, and we already have a sign for the former Citizen of the Year, a pole set up, and make those two city business only, the two right in front of City Hall. That's just a suggestion in dealing with this.
Yeah.
The two right here in front, the tandem, I guess it's tandem. I wish it was deeper and you could have.
Parallel, it's more like parallel parking.
Yeah, it's
but
like parallel parking right now.
So we're gonna do away with the Citizen of the Year parking in the future?
Yeah, there is no Citizen of the Year.
I'm glad it's over.
There is no Citizen of the Year.
Oh, it's on that way.
But there's still a pole there with a
Right.
possible something.
But I just thought it was a waste to have a parking spot there for somebody that might come once a month.
Yeah.
Now, is there a way to enforce that? If we find cars that are sitting in those spots for,
It'd be hard.
Pass over.
Okay,
They do take a few spots back here that say,
City
For
vehicle
staff
only?
Monday through Friday at 5, because I do find people that are parked, they're going to the thrift store that will, you know, I've told before, but I couldn't issue a citation unless it's ordinance. That's what it is.
Okay, so if we can designate those possibly tonight and then create an ordinance for future, that way it would allow at least 2 spots open for.
That's just my
That sounds good. I mean,
throwing that out. Thinking when this got brought up and started thinking about it.
That would actually be really convenient if they're just coming in to pay, they can just pull in,
Yeah.
pull out. So that would be.
Councilman Martin.
That's a good idea. That's what Pete Morgan got over there to, cause he was having a lot of people park going into the Peckle to eat, walk across the street. So he got that same sign.
Yeah.
Oh, no parking for, you know, except for patrons of the parts place, you know, from 8 to 5. So, and because you might have people in the evening here won't park for going to the restaurant or something across the street, you know, late in the evening, they hesitate to park there if it's a sign that says this is city parking only.
I don't know that he can force it.
Could we put a post right there on that sidewalk right there? To do it where it's more noticeable. I think it needs to be where people are gonna see it.
Can see it, yeah.
That might, of course, that might take away from the aesthetics of the appearance of the visual. I mean, that's just of the city hall, but on either end,
Painted on the concrete.
yeah, there you go.
Other discussion of council? I know there's some audience members want to speak. Brenda Maynard.
I appreciate your comments and keeping the thrift store, as most of you know, has been in this same spot since at least 1985. And I have been around since that 1985 also. We have 37, that's all right, I just dropped it, that's all right, thank you. We have, the thrift store has 37 lady volunteers, and we have 7 men volunteers. And most of those are elderly and have a few problems getting around. The thrift store takes in, and most of the money goes back into the community. It's between $60,000 and $55,000 a year. I will notify my employer, the thrift store volunteers, and ask them not to park on the city lot. And because we have the church parking lot. But anyway, that is what I will try to do, and be sure that all of those volunteers know.
Councilman Martin.
Would the conversation that we had, would that work for y'all as far as if we just dedicated the 2 spots out here? That way y'all could still park in the city parking lot? Would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay, if that would work,
Absolutely.
because we definitely want to work with everybody, and if we could just, you know, designate those 2, I think that would be enough to have the people paying, come in, pull in, pull out.
Well, anything like that, we're willing to work, and I think that would work great.
Well, good. Well, then don't spread that to your employees then, because I'm sure they can.
Like I said, that 37, you know, of course, they don't come every day.
Sure,
but-
sure.
So, anyway, thank you.
Well, good, thank you very much.
Is anyone else in the audience that would like to come up and speak on this item? Yes.
You
City
are
Administrator.
going to let me move mine way back there, right?
Sure, wherever you want.
I really did.
They shouldn't buy big vehicles like that, right? Little narrow parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, those fancy trucks. Anyone else in the audience like to come speak? Okay. All right, I'll come back to council. or any further discussion or concerns or consideration on item 6H regarding designated parking for patrons conducting official city hall business? Councilman Bryant.
I'd like to make a motion that we designate the two front parking areas directly in front of the city hall as for city business only.
Okay.
Are you guys looking for an ordinance for enforcement on that at a later date?
Yes. We need that on the agenda at a later date for an ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will second that motion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your right hand. Let the record show that it's 4 in favor of approving designated city business hall parking directly in front of the city hall. In the tandem parking, I call it tandem parking. All right, moving on to item 6I. Discussion, consideration, possible action on assessment of ad valorem taxes for properties located in Camelot Phase 3. I'll defer to our city administrator.
Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council, this is an unfortunate situation. It occurred a few years back when the city annexed Camelot Phase 3. From the research I've done, the annexation occurred when there was a transition of city secretaries, and it appears that it didn't get reported to the appraisal district. And in the years since then, as houses have been built, we provided certificates of occupancy to the appraisal district about those houses, but they didn't notice that. I guess they didn't notice what was going on. So anyway, those properties have not been put into the tax roll. There's been houses there for 2 or 3 years, some of them built in the last year. The appraisal district is correcting the situation, and this year those houses will be assessed for the city's taxes, but they were not for previous years. Other cities have had a similar situation before, and they ended up with a court ruling against them. And so there's some legal issues here, and I'm going to hand this off to our city attorney to find out what he believes we should do.
Okay, it is, as Michael said, it's an unfortunate situation, and it's pretty complex, honestly. And I don't think we're able to reach a resolution for it tonight. It's gonna take a little more time. Michael actually probably found, and provided me with early on, probably the case that I could find at this point is the most on point as far as a prior situation that's almost identical to this that actually happened over in Parker County. And I haven't had a chance to kind of follow up and see, because what the appellate court did in that case was send it back to the trial court to make further rulings. Now, the issue in that, though, is a couple things. Number one, in that opinion that's out there, the facts are identical to this, but the court was asked to make a different determination than what we're kind of dealing with here. And there's more some legal arguments as to why the case went a certain direction. But there's some language that I think when you read that opinion that really causes some pretty big concern if we just decide tonight to go out there and start collecting back taxes and sending notices to those residents up there that you now owe us for all these years back taxes. And I think it's really something we're going to have to be very delicate with, and allow me to spend some more time with, and if we need to, we'll get somebody else on board to kind of dig some more into it as well, and kind of see what we think is best for the city, because I do think potentially if we were careless with this action, it could create some liability for the city from what we've found so far, if we just demand our money. And I know that seems maybe kind of counterintuitive, because yeah, they've been paying for all these years, but the difference comes in the tax law allows for some scenarios where we can claim back owed taxes if there was owed improperly or at the fault of the property owner. They requested exemptions they were entitled to, but there's not really a exception in the tax code that applies in this scenario that allows us to do that, and that's kind of what this appellate court talks about in this scenario, that not really the exemption this falls under, so therefore, well, I don't know if we're going to claim it or not. I know it's a lot of just guessing and speculation, but we're going to take some more time and take some advisement. I think we're going to make good decisions. It's not easy.
So are you saying we should table this tonight to the next meeting?
I need a little more time on it right now.
To the next council meeting?
Yep, and I'll have to come.
Would that be the correct term, to table it to the next council meeting?
We can't
Be
table
taking
it, yes, sir. That'd be great.
Yes, Councilman Bryant.
So the risk or concern comes from if we try to go back and collect back taxes.
100%.
Okay, so if we don't go back and try to collect back taxes, it could end tonight.
It could what?
End tonight.
It could, and I mean, that's, maybe there's some issues that possibly with the Constitution, the state Constitution with that, possibly. But my fear of liability comes more on the situation if we decide to go pursue that money versus not pursuing the money, to be honest.
Okay, well, my opinion of the whole thing is, I just like to tie it lucky you, because I have no interest in going back. I know we need to protect the citizens and the taxpayers' money, but this was not their fault. And to go back and not penalize them, but tell them they owe 2 or 3 years worth of back taxes because we failed to identify that. I don't want to do that to the citizens, and I wouldn't want it done to me. So I would just like to, in my opinion, as moving forward, start the tax assessment as of this year.
You have a comment?
I was just going to say I had spoken with the appraisal district when we first found out about this, and they said that if we were to make the decision to go back, they wouldn't go back per property owner per year. They would go to the property owner current, and they would be the ones responsible for everything in years past.
So the homeowner, the current homeowner, not the one that actually bought it and didn't pay taxes.
Correct.
Yeah, even more so.
I would be agreeable to also just show grace and move on. Myself.
As long as we're not liable for having to do that, for some reason. I don't know what it's.
There's some technicality why we could get in trouble if we don't.
Like I say, I feel a lot
pursue.
more comfortable with that scenario. If you choose not to, I think there's potentially maybe an issue with that. But of course, if that could be applicable, then a citizen of this community that's obviously not a property owner there would have to bring suit against the city, claiming that they somehow were prejudiced by these people not having paid taxes or receiving services when they should have paid. Yeah, and I don't think that is probably a valid claim or suit to bring at all, but that's what you're looking at as far as how will we have any liability. That scenario would have to take place, and I don't see that happening. That's very low probability, but you would be almost certain if you decide to go collect that money, those
Correct.
people are probably going to bring suit against you to try to not pay.
Other discussion from council on this? Anyone in the audience like to come and comment on this item? Yes, ma'am. Be sure and state your name and address.
Yes. TJ Walker, 604 Southwest Bernard. I agree with Councilman Bryant. I don't think it would be fair. I don't live over there either. I don't think I did. I don't know where all the subdivisions are, but I don't think it'd be fair to go back when the homeowners, you get your taxes, you see what the total is, and you pay it. Not everybody checks and sees it, hospital district, school district, city, county, whatever, you see the total when you pay it. And especially after what Stephanie just said, that it would be the current homeowner, that as a citizen, if that were me, I wouldn't have the money to pay the back taxes that hadn't been done. And if it was from somebody else that owned the house in years past, I really wouldn't have it.
Thank you. Brady, so we'd be collecting for this coming year, 2019. We're going to be collecting for 2019.
Correct.
They'll get a bill in the fall for 2019.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Coming back to council, any further discussion, concerns? I will make a motion that we show grace and start collecting taxes for 2019 on the said properties on Camelot Phase 3. Is that wording adequate?
I'll second.
Have a second from Councilman Bryant. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed, raise your right hand. Let the record show that's 4 in favor of showing grace and not collecting taxes from 2015 through 2018 on Camelot Phase 3 and beginning collection in the year 2019. Okay, moving on to item J, 6J. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on adopting an ordinance authorizing a crosswalk across Northeast Bernard Street at the east side of the intersection of Walnut Street and the associated signage. I'll turn it over to our city administrator at this time.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, there's been interest in a crosswalk to be installed at that location on the square to help the visitors to our city to make their way around the square. It can be hazardous crossing the street at that point. In the past, the city has had some interest in installing crosswalks on Bernard Street, but they've been thwarted because it's part of the state highway system, and the city hasn't been allowed to install crosswalks. But I was informed by TxDOT that there's something that they've done in some of the regions. They haven't done it in this region yet, but that if a city were to adopt an ordinance establishing a crosswalk, mandating people use that crosswalk in the area, and then putting up the correct signage, that it could be done on a TxDOT highway. However, the city will have to enter into a maintenance agreement with TxDOT. Once the ordinance is passed and the city has gone on record wanting this, city officials would meet with TxDOT officials to make sure the signage is correct and that the city installs and maintains that crosswalk. So this is an option. It's like I say, it's a new thing for our region of TxDOT. This will be the first time, but they are willing to work with us on this if that's what the city council would like to do.
So this would be the first official step in moving this process forward. Other council discussions? Councilman Bryant?
I know this has been the crosswalk that's been requested for a long time. What about other areas? The other area on I guess the south or the west side of the four-way, what about that area that comes across Bernard?
Yeah.
Would that be a good area too? Even the crossing Elm Street?
Well, there is.
We have three.
There's discussions about putting traffic lights at that other intersection. I believe that's the one you're talking about.
Right.
And if there's traffic lights, then that's a natural thing, is to have the crosswalks as well. So this is the one that TxDOT brought to my attention and asked that we deal with right now. And then, of course, the other parts of the square that are off of the TxDOT system, we can put our crosswalks in by City Hall.
Well, if the red light conversation doesn't move forward in the near future, could we possibly look at the same type of crosswalk in other areas as well? And what color would that be identified in white or?
I believe so. Public Works has the material that's heat. You put it down with heat.
Yeah.
It lasts longer than the paint, but it would be white. Unless TxDOT gives us different guidance. They're going to, with this maintenance agreement that we'll have to set up, they're going to tell us how to do everything.
That's a good question.
Okay. Other discussion of council? Councilman Davis?
I think that for now is probably the best location for that crosswalk because it catches all the traffic coming down from like Storybook and the Green Pickle. And that is where everybody crosses anyway. So
It's much needed.
it's definitely something that needs to be added.
Councilman Martin?
Is the city responsible we've got to put wheelchair ramps on both sides?
That's a possibility that we would have to do that. We don't know that yet until we get further along in this process. But
I know we got, what, 10,000 in the budget for sidewalks, so we would cover that.
well, we might have to push
If we had
that
to.
back in the next budget year if we end up having to install that. And it's possible that as we move forward with our Safe Routes to School and Transportation Alternative, that we might could roll those ramps into that project as well. We're going to have some more conversations with TxDOT before we know for sure.
Yes, Councilman Bryant.
So how soon could we put this crosswalk down if we approve tonight?
Again, this is the first step, and we'll meet with TxDOT and take them the approved ordinance and meet with them. We'll be coming back to you with a maintenance agreement that you're going to have to authorize, and then after that, I could see that we might be able to put that in a month or two.
And maybe we could approve it in a May meeting? May meeting, possibly?
Right. But the big question is going to be if they will allow us to put that crosswalk in as it is, or if they're going to mandate that we don't put that in until the handicapped accessible ramps are put in, and that would slow it down.
So how long would it take to get handicap ramps put in? I just want to know, so we can have answers for the citizens about how fast we're going to be moving with this. Because a couple of handicap
We have an engineer who might could help us. There's handicap ramps, do you know cost, any kind of ballpark cost?
I haven't seen a recent estimate with those itemized out. Just off the top of my head, I'd guess maybe $5,000 a ramp. Depending on what all you have to do to make it ADA accessible. I mean, downtown areas are always pretty tricky as far as maintaining ADA accessibility, so there could be potential that you'd have to add some type of wall or handrail or something to make that work. So that's just a off the top of the head guess right now. And it could exponentially increase from there depending on what you're dealing with.
If we were to say we want to do that and we want a design and constructing, any ideas of how long of a, we have to go TxDOT approval too, so.
We'd have to, that's a kind of a hard question to answer just due to the TxDOT approval process. As far as the design goes for the two ramps, we get that done pretty quickly. Definitely, I think within 30 days from when we start. The approval process and coordination from there is, your guess is as good as mine. So
construction wouldn't take that long either.
Construction, it's all dependent on how fast you get a contractor on board and get going. So.
Okay. Thank you.
But TxDOT has to check off on this, correct? They have to approve the design.
And if the budget would end up anywhere close to where you're saying, even if we exceeded what we have right now, we could move some funds around to cover this so we could move it forward. But you can see there's just a lot of variables.
Okay. Other comment from council? I'll go to the audience. I know Tracy Brown has signed up to speak, and then Tricia Sexton.
Hi, Tracy Brown, 606 Stadium Drive. This wasn't about the specific, I didn't want to add to the specific location. It was more about what you were talking about. If this sidewalk was approved and then thinking on a little bit larger scale, immediately what made me think about was Oakdale Park crossing over to Snow Cone Shack. It was just merely an observation as a citizen last year, kids running out in front of these semis that are barreling down the road. I don't know if that's more of a speed limit issue that we kind of need to open up again, but the moment I saw that, I was just hoping maybe we could expand that over there for the safety of visitors and kids.
I think Michael can answer to that.
The comments I received from TxDOT is they're willing to consider this one because it's so close to that stop sign, and they feel like the traffic here would not be that fast. But there is a concern about putting a crosswalk at the location you're talking about because the vehicles are traveling faster and there's more liability issues there. So
is that then something that, I mean, evidently I'm not a radar, so I can't tell you how fast people are going. However, I have witnessed cars and even semis flying by a lot more than what I think is I think it's 30 miles an hour. So I don't know if that's just another dialogue that I need to open up later, but you just got my brain thinking when I saw this on the agenda today.
Our city policeman does stay down that area and patrol that frequently. He uses my church parking lot right there. Park. When they come up there. Tricia Sexton, sign up to speak.
I'm Tricia Sexton. I live at 2710 Green Meadow, and I have a business at 200 Northeast Bernard in the historic Campbell Building. Business on the square is wonderful. Every building is full at this time with more businesses looking to come in. With that, we have increased traffic, foot traffic on the square. But unfortunately, we also have a lot of increased automobile traffic. As you may or may not know, we have almost up to 300 semi-trucks a day that go 7 feet out in front of my door. Almost 300 a day. We cannot carry on a conversation if we have the door open. I know there's probably nothing we're going to be able to do about that, but I'd love to be able to at least slow them down. I do not know how they get to the speed they get to from the stop sign there at the CVB to my store. And when they get almost in front of us, they're hitting another gear. And I think that's when they're trying to get out. And those people never look up. They don't know that we have guests and citizens of Somervell County crossing right there. They go out of our building to visit the shoe fly. Kids are going across to get shakes. And those kids aren't looking. The elderly ladies that are walking across are having a really hard time. I cannot tell you how many times I've run out there and stopped traffic to try to help an elderly person come. And then we talk about the handicap ramps. Well, they're trying to step up on that curb. And ladies with strollers can't go on that curb. There are ramps over here, but they're looking for them. They don't see that ramp over there. So they're coming here, and then they're coming over to me, and then they're trying to go up here, and then I even tell them around here. But I started this a while back with the crosswalk, just hoping that maybe it would give the motorists an idea, hey, there are people crossing right here. Maybe I need to slow down. I do have the ADA guidelines that my son was helping me out and sent to Dr. Sheffield and to TxDOT. I do not see anything that says we have to have any kind of, it just tells us the slope and whether or not, you know, at what, was it before 1992, after 1992, how much our slope has to be. And basically it just tells us what your slope has to be so that a wheelchair or a stroller could get up there. But, and I know we can't stop these trucks at this time, but our building is crumbling. And Jean Lane, who is the owner of the building here, had someone from a historical architect come and look, and the vibrations of the truck, the sides of our building are falling apart. If you go look at the CVB, the windows in our new CVB are all cracked. The window, because of the vibration of 300 trucks a day. I don't think we're going to find another small town square that has 300 semis a day coming through its small town, much less a historical small town. And we have a problem. But anyway, I thank you for considering our little painted stripe across the street.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. Anyone else in the audience like to come and comment? Yes, Walter, would you come?
And this is not in opposition to this, but just a little history. When we redid the courthouse square, we put a crosswalk there with stop signs, and it didn't last long. Nobody wanted it because they run through the stop signs, you know. So just history, we need as much help with TxDOT as we can. And I know TxDOT rules Bernard Street. That's theirs. We don't have anything to say about it. It's theirs, except Buck can.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Come to the podium and state your name and address.
Sandra Whitaker, 706 Bernard Street. While we're thinking about that, we've got a crosswalk right out here. It goes from the parking lot over to the thrift shop. It's there. Nobody uses it. I mean, they use it walking, but they'll get ran over. That needs to be addressed. Because everybody that goes across the street, you get ran over.
Thank you.
Other comment from audience? Anyone else in the audience? Okay, coming back to council, we're looking for any further discussion or concerns on this item and looking for a possible ordinance. What would the ordinance number be if it should pass?
2019.04.
Point 0.04.
0.088.
0.088. That's
8A, I'm
8A.
sorry. Yes.
2019-.04.08A.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion or a motion to be entertained on this item? Councilman Martin?
I make a motion. We approve the crosswalk ordinance.
Okay.
Northeast Bernard on the east side of Walnut Street.
Okay. I'll second that. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed, raise your right hand. Let the record show that's 4 in favor of adopting ordinance 2019-.04.08A and adopting the ordinance authorizing a crosswalk across Northeast Bernard Street. Okay, moving on to mayor and council member reports. I would do taxes, but the taxes haven't been put out yet. I think that's Friday. Okay, moving on to staff reports. Public Works Director, have any reports for us? Anything to add? Okay. Events Hospitality Director. Okay.
We've got a few upcoming events. April 13th, we have the D&D Rock and Rock Star Show. And then April 20th, we have the third weekend Bluegrass Festival. And then May 10th and 11th is the Dulcimer Festival at Oakdale Park.
Thank you, sir. Kelly's left. Kelly here? Oh, she's gone. Okay. Police chief report. Any police chief report? Building, planning, coding, enforcement. Anything? Yeah, okay. Try to get it over 2 hours. City administrator report. Okay. City secretary report.
Nothing to that.
Okay. Okay. Announcements. If not, we will adjourn at 7:20. Not quite 2 hours.
I guess we're gonna deal with that issue anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you for the help. Thanks to you.
The man
Thank you
came
very much.